Good evening. You're on the smoking section, and I'm very happy to have a fellow Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights member with me, David Ajemian.
Hi,
David,
Steve.
welcome. Thank you for coming tonight and being
good.
on the show.
Thank you.
The other day, I ran into a Department of Public Works worker, and I asked him a little bit about the sidewalk butlers, which have kind of been, really that project has not been, we have not moved it along because I think they need placing, and he didn't know much about it.
That was our big project for last year.
Yeah, that was a project, and
they're still up though, aren't they?
They're up, but they're only in Central Square. I don't think they're placed as well as they might be placed. And for anybody who's not aware of what they are like, they're small receptacles for cigarette butts, because we're kind of, I think anti-smokers use the cigarette litter against us.
Certainly, and there aren't a lot of those sand buckets they used to have, or those little things with the tall.
Right, there are not a lot of ashtrays, and all smokers have been forced outside, so that the only place people can smoke, by and large, is outside, so that people tend to throw their cigarettes on the street.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the more I think about it, it would take a real. You'd have to educate all the smoking populace in the Cambridge area that these were available. You know.
Well, right, but right now they're not in convenient locations, in my opinion. So it would be quite something to do that. Well, anyway. I was very gratified because he said to me, "Oh, you're the guy who has the smoking show."
Oh, he knew about it.
So evidently, and his name is Kevin, and if Kevin is watching tonight, thank you for keeping our city so clean, Kevin, and for enjoying tobacco the way I do. And let's see what we can do with these sidewalk butlers, but that was gratifying. And
well, you know what would be good would be to do a little follow up with the city about what, you know, what their take on it is after a year. You know, yeah. I mean, are they even being emptied properly?
I don't think anything is happening with him. I think it's, to be quite honest, I think it's entirely moribund.
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly put a lot of effort into it, but I mean,
we did.
You know, we looked up the success of some cities like Salem and.
Well, I don't know. It'd be interesting to go up to Salem and find out if they are still working with them. We'll see about it, but
we also found it was hard. It was hard getting in touch with the city about this thing.
In Cambridge City.
Yeah, I mean, it was just hard getting.
Well, it's you got to work through bureaucracies. That's the way bureaucracies are run, and you know, government is basically bureaucracy, except in where you have a dictator or something, you have bureaucracies.
And then the council that we were working with, Mark McGovern, subsequently was elected mayor of Cambridge.
Yes.
So I'm sure he became, you know, much busier.
Probably.
It was even harder.
Yeah.
It was hard enough to get a hold of him as it was, you know.
Yeah. Well, he has these well, I keep saying to myself, I'm going to do something about it, and maybe I will one of these days. And right now, I've got a project to find out what the Somerville City Tobacco Ordinance is in regards to the Somerville City Club, because I went to a meeting there last Saturday, which was, they have a members meeting every 3 to 4 times a year, and they are of the opinion that it would be, they could not have a smoking section if they wanted to.
In the new club.
In the new club.
You mean because of the membership feelings of the members, or just because of permit issues, or?
Well, because of the tobacco ordinance in Somerville, and because of the feelings of many of the members.
The tobacco ordinance presently allows it.
Yes, I think it does. Well, we don't know. I mean, maybe it doesn't allow it. Maybe they are in violation of the ordinance, and it's not being enforced.
Really? Okay.
Well, I don't think that's likely. I think the likeliest story is they are in compliance, but the question is, has anybody seen the ordinance, looked at it carefully? And my impression was at the meeting that no one has.
Well, that would be. And did you speak up and say that someone should look at it, or
Yes, they said. Yeah. I took on that responsibility.
Okay. So that means a trip to the Somerville.
Well, not necessarily.
City Hall.
A lot of that stuff you can find online, but I think I will run by City Hall.
That's an interesting question, really, isn't it? I mean, because there are probably rules about cafes and restaurants.
There were all sorts of rules in Somerville.
But that's not considered a. That's probably maybe under a different title.
Well, this is considered a private club.
Private club, which maybe is like a private residence in a way, you know.
Well, to some degree, it's more. A private club is closer to a residence than a public accommodation, but it's not quite a private residence. And I mean, these laws are not easy. They're not that easy to find out, and they're kind of. I did find certain aspects of the Somerville ordinance that I was surprised was there, and that I wasn't aware of.
So was there another vote among members about whether they would allow tobacco in the club?
No, there was no vote.
Has that already been settled?
I guess it's settled. I'm not sure. I guess it's as settled as anything is settled, but not anything. There's a tremendous amount at the Somerville City Club that's not settled.
It doesn't sound like there was a lot of backlash against it. People weren't saying they really want to keep the smoke.
No, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not the question. The question is, and it's the question that I always, what is the Somerville ordinance?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's good or bad, or whether people like it or they don't like it, or whether they plan to have smoking or don't plan to have smoking, people talk about the ordinance as if they know what's in it, and I got the impression that not many people there do know precisely what's in it. You know, they know vaguely what's in it, but precisely what's in it is not clear.
Well, I hope people weren't just assuming things about it.
Well, I think there are assuming things.
Because you're
about
saying
it.
that
People assume things about everything.
People were saying that it doesn't look like that we're going to be able to get the tobacco permission.
That's correct.
That's what there are people standing up and saying. This is what we believe.
That's correct.
And they hadn't even read the ordinance.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Well, that's a big assumption.
Yeah, it's a big assumption, but I mean that's the nature of people to make big assumptions about all kinds of things.
But you told me that last year that it was pretty clear that the members did not want it anyway.
That's correct, also.
So I guess that's
So what?
Well, I mean that's too bad. I'm saying.
Yes, it is too bad. But that still doesn't tell me what's in the Somerville ordinance.
Well,
which I think would be a good thing to know, especially if we advocate for allowing smoking in the club.
Well, I'd be happy to go research it if you want. If you want me to go to
You want to go to the City Hall tomorrow?
Well, when I have a minute to do it.
Well, when do you have a minute? I mean,
I'm in the process of
Well, maybe you don't have a minute, so why volunteer if you don't have a minute? I mean, if you're that busy that you're like talking about, do I have a minute? I mean, it sounds to me like you're too busy to do anything.
Okay.
Well, what do you think?
I'm certainly interested in finding.
Well, I'm gonna go up there tomorrow, and see what I can find out. But it's not as easy as I thought. I thought I could look it up on the internet and find it pretty clearly, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
What would it be under like the bylaws, or do you know where to even begin to look?
Well, I mean, the city of Somerville, like the city of Cambridge, has a body of laws that are called ordinances. And they're usually divided up into certain categories, and one of these categories is tobacco control.
Well, the easiest thing would be to find the tobacco control officer for the city, who would probably be able to tell you right off the bat.
Well, I'm not so sure I want to talk to that person, because that person could have a very jaundiced view of the things. I want to see what the law itself says as it was written by the Somerville City Council. I'd rather not go to, the tobacco control officer.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what you find. You're a legal. You have experience looking up.
Well, I mean, it's yeah. Have you ever seen Gone with the Wind?
Yes.
You did.
Good
And
movie.
you did. You liked it.
I haven't seen it in years, but.
Well, the reason I mention it is because on public television, they have that series American Masters. And they did a profile of Margaret Mitchell, who is the author of. And of course, I always look at it from a kind of a smoker's rights perspective.
Was this recently?
Yes, it was last night. Depending if you.
She's considered an American master. I guess.
Well, I mean, American Masters is a.
I mean, I thought she was more of like kind of like a popular, pulp fiction type writer. I don't know.
No, she wrote one very well-known book, which is called Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
And it's considered to be the most, perhaps, at least according to this program, is the most popular book ever written.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if they consider her a great I don't think anybody considers Gone with the Wind literature, but this series of programs on public television is called American Masters. It's not necessarily meaning the person has to be a great literary genius or something. It means the person. I mean, the term is used. Master is used somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would have thought it might apply to someone like Leonard Bernstein or
Well, I'm
William
sure Leonard
Faulkner
Bernstein or Faulkner. Yeah, they could. You've never seen American Masters on?
No, I have seen it.
I mean, Hank Williams. They did something on Hank Williams, which was good.
So what's the smoking connection with Gone with the Wind?
Well, what I thought was kind of interesting in this profile of Margaret Mitchell, which was very, very flattering. Hardly anybody had a bad thing to say about her. And, I mean, she did seem like an interesting and a kind of nice person. They did some dramatizations. It wasn't 100% documentary. And they show her, like, with a typewriter, and they show her smoking a cigarette.
Oh.
Which I think was nice.
Yeah, this would have been back in like what, the 30s or 1930s?
Right, but then again, this was a dramatization made in the last 10 years, I assume. So very often they eliminate tobacco from their depictions of history. Because, history tells us a lot about the time when it's written, not just about the time about which it's written. So, for example, when people write histories now, they very often eliminate tobacco, or eliminate the importance of tobacco, etc.
Well, Steve, I think what you'll find is that depictions of tobacco, tobacco can often be put in a flattering light. For example, people love to see Winston Churchill smoking cigars.
They do.
Okay, they love to see artistic movies where tobacco, implies that the artist, like whoever it might be, Hemingway or any Hollywood movie about artistic people, they'll often show them smoking. Because there's a sense that, this is connected with their genius and with their creativity. Well,
it depends on the director. It depends on the director. I mean, for example, there was a biopic made about, and my apologies to people who think it should be pronounced biopic, but anyway.
It's biopic.
Well,
Because I saw it recently. It's got a dash. I think the way they put a dash.
Be that as it may, I mean, there was a biopic about Walt Disney, and the Disney Corporation said that they would cooperate fully with the movie maker as long as they did not depict Walt Disney smoking. And Walt Disney was a heavy smoker.
Well, that's Walt Disney. He's in his own league. That's a different category. I think.
Well, I mean, when Martin Luther King.
Walt Disney is not Ernest Hemingway. He's
well, right,
he's
but
an icon.
Well, but all I'm saying is how. I mean, there was an incident in London where someone walked up to the Winston Churchill Museum, and there were big banners outside with photographs of Winston Churchill, and this particular person noticed that the particular photograph that was on one of these banners, Winston Churchill was not smoking a cigar, and in the actual photo he was. Someone had airbrushed the cigar out of Winston Churchill's mouth at the Winston Churchill Museum in London.
Well,
so different people depict it. I mean, it's different how the BBC did a program on as Not American Masters on Coco Chanel, and you see lots and lots of photos of Coco Chanel in this documentary, and she's not smoking in any of them. And I know that Coco Chanel was a very, very heavy smoker, and that most photographs of Coco Chanel, she is smoking a cigarette. My guess is the BBC either photoshopped the photos or selected only photos of Coco Chanel.
Okay, whereas in their series called The Crown, which is all about the royal family, they show George V and George VI and Churchill smoking abundantly.
Well, right, right, of course, and they especially want to show, that whoever George was who died of lung cancer, they definitely want to show him smoking, right? Well, okay, be that may, I mean, the way people depict history varies, and they choose to do it one way or another, and some are more honest or some are less honest than others. That's all.
But you seem to like it when it is shown.
I like it when it's depicted accurately.
Yeah,
yes, I like it when it's depicted accurately.
What about something like Mad Men, for example? That show, because
I don't know. Mad Men was, yes, they had a lot of people smoking in it, and I don't know if they chose to put any anti-smoking messages in it. I did not see enough of the series to really.
Well, what I would say about that is that it's probably the way they do it is probably accurate. That's probably the way people did smoke in the early 60s.
In the 70s.
At the same time, I think they do it. It's almost too accurate because the people are going to come away with it thinking like all the. Because that show's got some negative connotations.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the show, and it's not, it's kind of a funny show. I do know, but in this Margaret Mitchell thing that was on last night, I did see one anti-smoking message in it, because they mentioned that Margaret Mitchell's husband had a serious heart attack at some point, and then when they. As they mentioned that, they have, the whole screen is filled with an image of an ashtray filled with a lot of butts.
Oh.
And this is, the part of the movie makers, are the documentarians trying to reinforce the idea that smoking somehow led to his heart attack. I don't know if he smoked or not. I don't know if they know if he smoked or not. I don't know how, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did a program a few weeks ago, probably a few months ago, with a fellow named Kenny, who's very concerned about misandry.
Yes, hostility toward men.
Right.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
It's the opposite. You saw the show?
Yes.
And one thing that I kind of, kind of affected me in this, impressed me in this thing last night, was Margaret Mitchell was very was engaged to be married, and her fiance. This was in the First World War, and her fiance was called up to the military and fought in Europe. And when he fought in Europe during the First World War, Margaret Mitchell went to Smith College.
Okay.
And I thought that was a kind of interesting dichotomy, might be the word. Here, her fiancé, who is male, is fighting in the trenches in Europe with all the horrors associated with that, because he's a man, and Margaret Mitchell goes to Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. Men fought in the trenches. He eventually was killed.
Right. Well, women didn't fight back in World War
That's
I.
correct.
Yeah. So it's not.
But I mean, this whole kind of thing about women have been getting, we keep hearing that how long women have been getting the short end of the stick. And, like, for example, in my generation, there are 50,000 names of men my age approximately who died in Vietnam, and women weren't subjected to the draft. So, in other words, this idea that for so long women have been getting the short end of the stick and that we have to make up for this, and isn't it terrible when in my generation 50,000 men were killed in Vietnam?
Well, no, I just think, I mean, if you talk to a pro-women's rights person, they would just say, well, women should have been fighting in those wars.
No, well, maybe they,
that's what their
but I don't
position
know.
would be.
I don't know what they would say.
I mean,
I don't know what they would say, but I would say that certainly women had it a lot easier in the war times than men, because women didn't have to fight, and they didn't have to have their legs blown off.
Now.
Well, I don't know. There are not that many women in combat. I mean, there's like about, I think in Iraq and Afghanistan, there are probably about 20 women who have been killed, and there's about 3,000 or 4,000 men. I'm not so sure they're shouldering the, they're being blown apart.
I don't know what the rates are, but
well, no, they're very, very different.
I'm just saying, I think women are now allowed into the.
No, that's right.
into the
Theoretically,
combat
they're
field.
allowed into combat. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying, when we hear about how oppressed women have been in this country, and when you think about how many men have been obliged to go off to war and have their legs blown off and be killed, as was Margaret Mitchell's husband or fiancé, while she went to Smith College, she certainly seemed to get the better end of the deal, right? Would you not agree? I mean, which would you rather do? Which would you rather be doing?
It seems like you're mixing.
Metaphors?
Yeah, you're taking two different issues. I mean, I don't. It's like that was the way it was then, and
that's right. And but women are saying, isn't it terrible how men have gotten so much privilege in this country for so long, and it's time it stopped. Whereas I thought the privilege of not having to fight is a great privilege that women have enjoyed for a long time, and I don't think that's acknowledged.
I'm just saying. I think your modern feminist doesn't
might
see it,
disagree
doesn't
with
see it
that.
as a privilege. Yeah.
Well, listen. There was something interesting on our Facebook about that I got upbraided by because one of our Facebook followers, Susan Harrison, who's a very interesting person and a very intelligent person, and comments on Facebook, our Facebook page, she took issue because Emily posted some things, some comments he made about tobacco that we thought were very good. And
I think I saw her reply to you.
We went back and forth for a while.
What was the thing that she was upset about again?
Well, I mean, she was saying that we should not ally ourselves with Mike Pence because to her, Mike Pence is a frightening individual.
Right.
And my response essentially to her was that Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights is nonpartisan. We don't endorse political candidates, and we don't say we're Republican or Democrat. But if a political candidate or a politician says something good about tobacco, we are going to extol it.
Well, Yeah, I've seen. I know Trump. Yeah, people have criticized Trump because he's pro-life, for example.
Oh, right.
I've seen progressive pro-lifers, say, "Oh, it's terrible that Trump is being attached to the pro-life movement because he's
Okay,
such a terrible
well,
person."
Right.
I know what you mean.
Anyway, David, thanks for coming on. Let's say goodbye to our thousands of viewers.